In today's Necron video, we are going to take a close look at the amazing new Necron models for 9th edition 40k. And it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to learn about Necrons and more, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so first of all, a massive thank you to everyone who joined my live stream where we watched the Warhammer TV announcements, the preview of what is in the new starter box set, although apparently it's not a starter set, it's just a box set. And of course, half of this box set is Necrons. We've got some detailed pictures now of the Necrons in that box set and also some other Necrons which are coming soon. Now of course over the last few days there's been some Necron rules releases as well, and I'm going to cover those in the next video. But today I want a closer look at the new miniatures. Okay, so the first thing to note here is that every single miniature in this new Indomitus box set is a brand new miniature, which I think is awesome. I can buy this and I'm not going to be duplicating any of my old miniatures. Yes, I'll be getting new warriors and new scarabs, which of course I already have the old ones, but at least I'm getting all new miniatures. That's a big thumbs up for me on that one. Okay, so first of all we've got a brand new Overlord miniature, and it says, every army needs a commander to lead it into battle, and with great power comes even greater war gear. Not only does the Necron Overlord look as imperious as its esteemed rank demands, but it also bears a brand new weapon, a hyperphase glaive for those keeping track of these things, and a tachyon arrow. Cross this fella and you're likely to find yourself chopped to ribbons and maybe deleted from time and space. So it's interesting that we've got some new weapons for this Overlord, maybe to help sell the new model, because obviously everyone has Overlords already, but not with these pieces of war gear. I suspect these are going to be pretty good in game. I'm liking the design of this model. I know obviously they went towards the Egyptian look a little bit more when they updated the fluff, and I still think they've got the Egyptian look there, but with the new design I think it's taking that away a little bit, and they do look very ancient as well as being robots and as well as being Egyptian, so I think it's a nice mixture. I'm really liking the extended sections going above his head there. I think that gives the model a little bit more height and also takes the eye away from the Egyptian headpiece at the top there. So personally I'm really liking that. And of course he's got this new glaive, and of course he's got a tachyon arrow, which is interesting. Of course we've had tachyon arrows in the past, so it'd be interesting to see what the rules are. I'm really liking his crest with the Necron symbols on there. I think that gives him a bit more of a regal look, especially with the robes coming down, and it sets him apart from the standard Necrons, making him an actual HQ. So a massive thumbs up for me for that model. I really like it, and I'm interested to find out what the rules will be for that hyperphase glaive. That will be interesting. Okay, so next is the Royal Warden model, and it says, if an Overlord, that's you, needs a job done right, it's time to call a Royal Warden to keep things on track. As well as being a reliable aide de camp, the Warden is tough as nails and armed with a relic Gauss blaster. Even better, he's got his foot on a rock to look all heroic, and a Swiss stripe on his shiny skull head that can make even a Primaris Lieutenant envious. Yeah, okay. So this is the guy that I made a video about, thinking that maybe he could be an immortal lord. Effectively, he almost is. Apparently, he is going to buff warriors and immortals when it comes to fleeing. So that would be very useful. And of course, he's got not just with a normal Gauss blaster, but a relic Gauss blaster. So hopefully this is even more powerful. It also says that he's as tough as nails. So, well, hopefully he's going to have a really good toughness, maybe toughness 6. I mean, that would be pretty cool. Again, he's got those Necron symbols on his collar there, which seems to be what they're doing with the new characters No Egyptian headpiece on this one, making him look more like an immortal, but like most of the new HQs, he's got those two sections coming just above his head, which, as I said, is nice because it just gives him a little bit more height on the table. He appears to have a cloak, although it does look a little bit odd in this picture. Maybe it's attached to his back and his arm, potentially. It just looks a bit weird in this picture, but on the whole, again, another awesome looking model, and it really fits into the theme. I mean, looking at this model and the Overlord we just looked at, you know, there is quite good similarities there. I like the uniformity that we have with the new models. So next is the Plasmancer, and Plasmancers are a mysterious class of Cryptek, also known as Harbingers of Destruction. Now that's interesting because when we had the Royal Court where you could take Crypteks with different abilities, the Harbinger of Destruction was one of those abilities, so maybe we're getting that sort of Royal Court thing back. This anonymous title is well earned as it happens. A Plasmaster is a master in the art of weaponizing the hyper-technology of the Necrons and the plasmic lance it bears, equally deadly at range as it is in melee, is a fine example of its skills given form. Floaty and frail looking, yes. Super deadly at every distance, also yes. So yeah, of course, the elephant in the room, he doesn't have any legs. He's just floating on a little towel thing. I like it, actually. I mean, it's very different, it's very unusual, but I do like it, and I think it gives an extra sense of this guy is different from the rest of the Necron, so I'm really looking forward to finding out exactly what he can do. And it would be nice to have a Cryptek type unit, which is actually pretty decent in close combat, because our current Crypteks, well, they don't really do a great deal. So I'm looking forward to the stats of this one. In terms of the model, like I said, I'm really liking it. I think it looks pretty cool. Okay, so next we've got these things, the Crypto Thralls, which these long-taloned murder buckets things seem to be little more than expendable bodyguards at first glance. As it happens, Crypto Thralls are actually formidable adversaries, especially when galvanised into action by the presence of their master, the Plasmancer. When fighting alongside the Plasmancer, or any other Cryptek for that matter, the Crypto Thralls will serve as its sword and shield. There you go then. So basically, these guys are bodyguards for the Crypteks. They are quite unusual looking, I mean, let's be honest. However, of course, they've got those big flayed claws, so they can obviously help in close combat with the Crypteks. And I assume their bucket thing, whatever you want to call it, is going to help with the toughness of the Cryptek somehow, or at least maybe take some wounds for the Cryptek. Because it does say sword and shield, so the sword obviously is their claws, and the shield, I assume, basically, maybe they just take wounds, so you could probably kill one of these as opposed to taking a wound on a Cryptek or something like that. Either way, quite an unusual looking model, which in some ways is cool because they're actually quite fun. I mean, this is probably a fun unit in the Necron army. And yeah, do I like them? Do I like them? I don't know. I don't dislike them. They just look weird. Okay, let's move on to the next unit. Okay, so next up is the Scorpic Lord, the final boss of the awesome Warhammer 40k cinematic trailer. The Scorpic Lord is death incarnate for anyone who dares to face it in battle. Looks like the Primaris Sergeant and the Battle Sister are in for a fight of their lives. This enormous hate-fueled destroyer can unleash the searing fury of its enigmatic annihilator at range, reap anyone in its path with its devastating hyperphase harvester, or use its flensing claws to, flens its prey. Now, of course, we've covered this model previously, as well as the Pet Destroyers, which are coming up next, so I will go over these two units quite quickly. 3 legs and 3 arms. It does take a bit of getting used to. I'm starting to get used to them, to be honest, and it's actually quite nice to have something out of the box, I think, in terms of model designs. I like the 3 legs, I think, more than I do the 3 arms. However, the 3 arms, well, you know, that's what we've got, and at least we've got a plethora of weapons on this guy. Now, as we've discussed before, he has no hands. His hands are basically the weapons, which I'm not sure if I like that or not, to be honest. It does give him the autonomous type look, like this guy is just there for war. I mean, what else is he going to do holding those 2 weapons? Unless they detach and then he's got hands back in the Tomb World that he can just pop on for when he wants to do other stuff apart from fighting. However, a cool model, and like I said, he just takes a bit of getting used to, as do the next guys. The Pet Destroyers. If you like the idea of destroyers who scuttle forward into combat to murder their prey rather than gunning them down from far away, you're in for a treat. Pet Destroyers butcher their way through anything in their path with their twin blades, called Hyperphase Threshers, or an enormous 2-handed version, the soon-to-be rightly feared Hyperphase Reap Blade. So once again, we've seen these previously, and again, they have no hands, they've got these blades for hands, and of course they've got 3 legs. Again, they take a bit of getting used to, but it's nice just to have a fresh new design for these new models. And then next is the Plasmasites, which we have seen before, but we haven't seen it painted, and we certainly haven't seen it in such detail. These seamlessly innocuous machines drift in the wake of the Pet Destroyers. Though fairly harmless by itself, especially when compared to the walking death dealers it accompanies, a Plasmasite's ability to infuse the destroyers with tainted energy makes an already dangerous unit deadlier still. Also, it's weirdly cute. Well, I have to agree with that. It reminds me of a mosquito. I like the very small little scarab by his foot there. And of course, he's got this sort of tentacle thing which comes out of the top, which I think is how he's supposed to infuse the destroyers to give them these extra abilities. Either way, I think you're going to want one of these accompanying your Pet Destroyers and your Pet Lord. I think these guys working together are going to be great on the table, but we'll have to see what the rules will be. Okay, next we've got the Canoptic Reanimator. So it's not called a Stalker, it's the Reanimator, which hopefully with that name it's going to help with reanimation protocol roles. Of course, we now have the rules for this guy, or some of them, and we're going to cover those in the next video. However, we're talking about the model more here today. And the text for the model says, no, it's not an armoured land walking jellyfish, it's far scarier. This long-limbed support platform dubbed the Canoptic Reanimator will keep your machine legions in the fight against the most withering enemy assaults, even while its atomizer beam lances out to disintegrate those who would threaten its charges. So this guy definitely sounds more of a close combat machine, and also it's going to help with reanimation protocol roles. There is another version, of course, of this with a big gun on the top, which we'll talk about later. But the model itself, again, it's very different. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but overall, I like it. And I do like the sort of neck piece that's coming down. It's just out there, this model, and I think it's a great addition to the army. It's going to be very cool to have a couple of these in the army. It's going to really increase the sort of height and size of our army. It's going to make us look a bit beefier and hopefully scarier on the table. And of course, it's got that scenic base there, which, whilst is very cool, it does worry me slightly because it's not going to match my army. So I'm going to have to look at changing that base somehow, which, whilst very cool, is sometimes a disadvantage of being supplied a fixed scenic base. Now next we've got not a new unit, but new models for a unit we already have, the Canoptic Scarabs. guaranteed to get under the skin of their victims, while the insectile canoptic scarabs aren't especially deadly individually. Easy for us to say, we're not the ones fighting a metal murder bug the size of a dustbin lid. They can overwhelm even the largest targets as they swarm all over them in great clouds. Just ask the poor Space Marine in the cinematic trailer. Yes, well, they looked very cool in that trailer. However, where did they go? I mean, there was thousands of scarab swarms and then they just disappeared. Surely they would have stayed for the rest of the battle. However, the new models do look very cool. What I really like about them is we've got different sizes of scarabs, which really helps bring some depth to the model. And we've seen from the sprues of these miniatures how they come, and well, sadly they're going to come with our warrior kits, just like they used to. So you'll get 10 warriors and 3 scarab bases. They're not individual scarabs. They're fixed, moulded together, so you just put them onto the base as one. As far as I can tell from the sprues that we've seen so far, these scarabs only come with the warriors. So you're in a position, if you want these, you just have to buy the warriors to get them, which is a disappointing way to go. I think it's okay supplying them with a unit, as long as all of the units have a few scarab swarms, so you can build up a nice collection as you buy units. Otherwise, really, to be honest, they should be sold as a unit in a box separately. However, that's not what we've got. But on the flip side, they do look very cool, and I really like these updated miniatures. Awesome work. Then we've got the new Necron Warriors. Whether they carry their traditional Gauss Flayer or the shorter ranged but harder hitting Gauss Reapers, phalanxes of warriors are the inexorable mainstay of any Necron Legion. Domitus contains 20 of these fantastic new models, a fresh take on the classic, complete with pitted and scarred armour and plenty of battle damage from one too many reanimations. So 20 of these in the box, which means if you're buying 2 boxes and splitting them with a friend, so you get a rulebook each and you get 2 sets of models, where you're going to get 40 warriors. But even if you're just getting 1 box, that's a good amount of warriors and 6 scarab swarms. Now, of course, we've talked about these new warriors previously. They are more battered and beaten up. However, they did say in the live preview show that the sprue comes with extra heads that aren't damaged and beaten up. So you do have the opportunity to build these undamaged, or at least the heads undamaged. I'm not sure about the rest of the body. I don't think you have that many options. But at least we've got the ability to change them up a little bit how we like. Now we're going to talk more about this new Gauss Reaper gun and its rules in the next video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. The other interesting thing about this set, which almost did surprise me, is that they're all push-fit models. Now, whilst push-fit models shouldn't surprise me, I mean, when you look at the sprues, especially on the Reanimator, I mean, he's got so many little fiddly bits. It's hard to imagine how that model is going to be push-fit. And also, if it is push-fit, of course, there's going to be less chance of us being able to change the model as much as we could if it was a model that you glued together. But it seems to be the way Games Workshop is going. It's probably just easier for them to make the moulds, make the casting, etc. Okay, so that's the box set. However, they also released some other stuff regarding the new miniatures, and the first one was the Lockcast Heavy Destroyers. These immense floating robots put the heavy back into heavy destroyers. Just look at those oversized thrusters. Fitted with advanced optics and wielding Gauss destructors and pneumatic exterminators, Lockcasts are programmed to erase the heaviest opposition. Those powerful jets make them highly mobile, and the long reach of their weapons means they'll be taking out their quarry and making for an especially resilient target. So at last they've confirmed that this is the Heavy Destroyer, and it does seem like we've got totally different guns. No mention of a heavy Gauss cannon. So it indicates, well, it sort of indicates that this guy has 2 guns, because it says wielding Gauss Destructors and Enmatic Exterminators. But I don't think he has 2 guns. What I think it is there's 2 gun options now for this heavy destroyer. Probably an anti-tank gun, a big heavy hitting gun, and maybe something similar to a Gatling gun. It's going to be very interesting to see the full rules for these new heavy destroyers, and it's also very interesting there's no mention of the normal destroyer, our hover destroyer, so we do not know what's happening with that. We know that they're getting rid of all of the miniatures with those green rods, so fingers crossed there's going to be another version of this coming, which will be our destroyers with the shooting guns. Or are these guys here totally replacing our normal destroyers? You build them either with the Gauss Destructors, which are probably the heavy Gauss cannon equivalent, or you could build them with the Enmatic Exterminators, which could be the Gauss cannon equivalents, i.e. our normal destroyers. So I think maybe this unit here that we see is going to replace both the heavies and the standard destroyers. Now the model itself, again, I really like it. I'm really pleased that we've got hovering units still, because I love hover. That's one thing that drew me to the Necrons. However, it seems like there's no flying base. It appears his tail is attached to the rocks, and that's how he hovers. However, it does mean he's going to be quite low to the ground. I generally like to use tall flying stems, because I think it just enhances the fact that they are hovering. And of course, you're not going to be able to necessarily do that unless potentially you convert them. However, it's very cool to see that these guys are still hovering. They've got an awesome look about them. He does have 3 arms, and they're totally attached to the gun. Again, I'm not sure exactly how I feel about that. Does he really need 3 arms? Well, 3 arms seems to be the new thing, so, well, maybe he does. Anyway, let me know what you think of the 3 arms for this guy. I mean, he is wielding a very heavy gun, so maybe he just needs them for that, but it just seems a little bit over the top. But even those big guns look tiny next to this one, the Canoptic Doom Stalker. The Necrons really know how to gain an advantageous firing position for their heaviest weapons. The colossal Doomsday Blaster mounted on the back of this leggy construct can be fired on the move, or they can remain stationary to unleash its full cataclysmic potential. If anyone gets too close, auxiliary twin Gauss flayers add a little extra hurt. So basically this guy is the shooting version of the Reanimator. Now it does look very similar, so whether it's going to be a dual kit where you can make one or the other, it's hard to say. I mean, the box set doesn't come with the sprues to make this guy. There's nothing in there with the big gun, so they've either excluded that sprue or it is a totally different kit. Now personally, I'm not a huge fan of that gun on the top. I think it looks weird on that model. However, I will pass judgment when I actually see the model in the real and I own one and I've painted it. However, it's pretty cool to have another big gun in the army. It is disappointing that if we move, the gun stats are lower, which means we're going to be back to the Doomsday Arc scenario of having to stay stationary. However, with the extra height of this guy, hopefully we'll be able to get a better shooting position than on the Doomsday Arc, because the Doomsday Arc gun is quite low, and especially if you have to place it on the ground, it can be hard to get line of sight. Now obviously we are getting new terrain rules as well, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how this guy works in 9th edition. Now he does have a different scenic base compared to the Reanimator, which does suggest to me it's going to be a different kit to the Reanimator. I don't think it's going to be a dual kit because, well, they won't put 2 scenic bases in the box, so I think that pretty much confirms it's going to be a different kit. But overall, I have to say all of these new models really do look amazing. Right, stay tuned for the video that's coming up next about some of the new rules that we know about for Necrons. Beam me up!